I started feeling debilitating symptoms. No idea why. You just think something's wrong if you are bit by a tick. Hi, welcome to the Lauren Luft channel. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you find this video valuable. You don't necessarily get Lyme disease. You have a chance. If that tick was carrying the disease and it bit you, it could have infected you. Sometimes people will get a bullseye-shaped rash. Sometimes they won't. When they get the bullseye, it's alarming. At the same time, it's a blessing to get that marking because you need to be treated. If you don't get the bullseye, then what happens? Well, you start having these debilitating symptoms, but you have no idea why. You just think something's wrong, then you know something's wrong, and then you go to different kinds of doctors and get different tests because Lyme disease symptoms can look like a lot of other illnesses. It causes body aches, tremors, absent-mindedness, fatigue. There's so many ways we can feel if we become infected with Lyme disease. When I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, it had been several months. I was having trouble walking. I was in so much pain. That's a very big side effect of Lyme disease, is the pain that it can cause, especially if you've been infected for a long period of time. It seems to attack our body where we already have a weakness. If you have part of your body that's been operated on, or there's some kind of weakness there, it was injured, or maybe you were born with an area weak, it seems to find those places in our body that is vulnerable. So for a long time, I thought that this pain I was having in my back and down my leg, and then not being able to walk, I thought it was because of my scoliosis. I have scoliosis, and I've had 4 spine surgeries. So I couldn't help but think that the pain I was having, because I still have severe curves, I thought this definitely has to be from my scoliosis. So all that time of investigating, even though, yes, I was ruling out things, so I was gaining information, but that whole time, my symptoms were just getting worse and worse. And I kept checking off more and more on the symptom checklist for Lyme disease because there are so many possible symptoms. After, I don't remember exactly how many months it took, but I finally had a positive Lyme disease test. And my doctor called and said, guess what? It's Lyme disease. So we're going to treat you with the usual medication they would treat it with, which is doxycycline. Forget if I did 21 days, but probably something like that. And that's the protocol. At least it was then. So 22 years, maybe? Wow. So I took the antibiotic, and it was a large dose. So if you happen to think you have Lyme disease or know you have Lyme disease, usually you're on a strong antibiotic at a high dose for a long time, at least a few weeks. And if you have had Lyme disease for a long time, for example, in my situation, if you didn't get the rash, but you were having symptoms and you thought it was maybe fibromyalgia, or maybe they found a herniated disc in your back and possibly they think the pain is coming from there. I mean, it could be anything. Because I'd had it for so long, the 3 weeks of doxycycline was not sufficient and my symptoms continued. So it basically led me to being home all the time, doing nothing, and I was on pain medicine. Oxycodone, because he looked at my x-rays and he said, I think we're looking at long-term pain, and this is a medicine that is made for people that have pain, chronic pain, permanently. We started at a certain dose. Of course, with all the stigmas with the medicine, I was apprehensive, and every time I took it, I felt guilt for taking it. It did help my pain, and it did make me very tired. I would say being tired is one of the strongest side effects of that medicine. Constipation is another one. Super constipating. And then that creates abdominal pain. It's like a fucking snowball effect. It's one thing after another. I got to a point where you start not knowing if a symptom is from your medication or if it's from your illness. When you're in that deep in depression and pain, also having your life slip through your fingers like that, watching life just pass you by, and you know that your life was so much more before. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard to be optimistic and to even think that your life is going to be different sometime. For a long time, I remember thinking that my life was going to be like that permanently. When I look at pictures now from back then, I don't recognize myself. I had gained a lot of weight because I wasn't active anymore. I just don't even look like myself. And because I have kids, I was very active in their lives. And it forced me to have to pull back from that a lot. That was probably the hardest part of it. So one of the biggest things that helped, besides when my boys would come in to see me and spend time with me, because I was basically in bed all the time, always beating myself up for fucking being lazy. And I was being anything but lazy. I basically had no energy. I couldn't do anything. I felt like a rag. I finally did go to a doctor that specialized in Lyme disease treatment for people that have chronic Lyme disease or long-term Lyme disease, and their symptoms have become neurological, because that's what I was experiencing. To get to her was about an hour and a half ride, which was not easy. I was at the point where I was eager to meet this doctor. Right around when I met this doctor, I also started going to a Lyme support group at the local hospital. I wasn't thrilled about going. If you're someone that is suffering right now with any kind of chronic illness, you don't feel like doing anything at night. And even if you wanted to, you don't have the energy. I did go to the support group. There was a facilitator for the group, and there were a lot of people in this support group. It was very informative. I learned a lot, and I also felt comfort. And we would go around the circle, and everybody would share something. And being able to share what I was feeling with others that totally got what I was feeling and could relate and added to what I was saying, or someone else could relate and they were scared about that symptom or something like that. I started feeling some kind of hope. There were other people that understood me, and some of the people there were farther along and some were not as far. So there were always people at different places in their Lyme disease. You get to see people that are improving, and you think, well, maybe there's that little glimmer of light that you start to see because you're seeing somebody right in front of you that went through a similar situation and they're getting their life back. And because you're feeling like absolute shit and that there's no way this is going to get better. So I met people there that I have kept in touch with on social media. And when I had questions about things that, let's say, my doctor couldn't answer, I could bring the questions to the group and talk about them there. it was just all around such a supportive piece of that whole chapter, was having that community feel once a month. That's how often I went. If you are struggling with Lyme disease, finding a support group nearby, and I'm sure now there's probably plenty online as well. Online wasn't an option when I had it. I was glad to get out that one time because I was not getting out much at all. I did also learn what a difference just getting outside a little bit. Once I started to go out during the day, it made a tremendous difference. Starting to walk a little bit at a time each day. You know what? I doubt I even started each day because I had had it for so long, and the oral medication for 21 days did not take it away. I did end up on IV antibiotics. The IV medication, I'm happy to go into that more specifically in a separate video because this is already getting pretty long, and I'm sure you've probably heard enough about Lyme disease by now. But the IV antibiotics definitely helped a lot, and I finally was able to start getting out a little bit to work with a physical therapist. And that's when things started to slowly turn around, was that time, a couple times a week, getting out and just doing some kind of cardiovascular. I'd have to say I felt the biggest difference after I started going to that support group for Lyme disease and meeting with a physical therapist and cardiovascular exercise. That really made a huge difference in how I felt. And that also brought me outside. And getting outside, getting air, all of that really helped to turn things around. If you are suffering from Lyme disease right now, I'm so sorry. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. Thanks for watching. Namaste.